Hello, everybody. Let's go ahead and talk about your historical movie review essay. So, as the overview says, you are going to write an essay. So, we're talking multiple paragraphs, introduction, body paragraphs, conclusion, all that. And it does go over the expected organization. It's all pretty formulaic. You need to have a minimum of two textual examples from your primary source. So, in this case, the primary source is the movie that you are reviewing. So, quotes from the movie. And at least one, you need to basically bring in a historical or reference database source at least once in the paper. So, how you bring that in is up to you. It can be summary, it can be paraphrase, or it can be a direct quote, but it has to be cited, of course, and it has to come from the library databases. That is the requirement. So no Google for this. Any additional sources that you use also have to be from databases. So we're not using Google for any of this, right? We're using these for assessment purposes on top of what's happening for the class. So that's something that like everybody in the department is doing, regardless of the kind of lit class they're teaching. We're all doing a similar assignment, and that's one of the basic components of it. So you've already had some practice doing the Flipgrid for educated. So now you know where some good places to get historical research would be. So just head back in there. So, like it says, the cited material is the evidence you are providing to support your argument. Anything taken from the movie and databases needs to be cited with MLA documentation in text and works cited. So this should not come as any surprise, but you've been given a list of movies to pick from. You're going to select one, you're going to watch the whole thing, and you are going to review it. And this is the structure you're going to use. So for the introduction, you're going to give a very brief, like don't go too crazy, description, summary of what the movie's about. And this is really important. Where and when is this movie set? Okay. That's important for the rest of the context for the rest of the paper. And then from there, you need to have a thesis statement that gives an opinion about the film and its value as historical representation of women during the time period and the cultural context in which it's set. So that's why the background research is important, because if you're going to make that argument that, okay, let's say you pick Frida, that Frida is a valuable representation of what life was like for women, in her case, women artists during the time and place in which it was set, you need to bring in information about what that was like for her, which shouldn't be too hard to find. And then you're going to have basically two body paragraphs. So I know most essays are at least five. This one's going to, the whole thing, whole shebang is going to be four all day long. Introduction, analysis, evaluation, conclusion. So this part's important that you actually use this resource that I've linked to here. So instead of me going through and telling you the three different approaches to analyzing a film, literary, dramatic, or cinematic, I've included a tutorial on the three different approaches, and the link is right here. So you need to go through that. I would look at it before you spend too much time watching the movie so that you can be thinking about what you should be looking for, because they all are focused on different things. So like literary is more focused on um, like the kinds of things we look for in literature. Oops, did I do this wrong? So yeah, things that it shares with literature: plot, characters, setting, theme, point of view, stuff like that. And then the other two are going to have, so you could do it this way or you could just hit the button through. So dramatic is going to be looking at things like you would with a play: the dialogue, the costuming, the makeup, sets. And then cinematic is looking at, like, if you're a visual person and you like thinking about the ways that choices are made to depict things and shoot things, and the way sound is used and visual effects are used, things like that, this might be the approach for you. So obviously, since you're looking for different things depending on the approach, knowing about this before going into too much into the film can be helpful, because then maybe you can be taking some notes on, like, oh, here's something interesting I'm seeing here, that kind of thing. Okay, so this is where you should be bringing in, specific examples from the movie and talking about them using one of these three approaches. And then here's where you're bringing in the database source support. So again, you're evaluating, was the film an accurate representation of the historical cultural context in which it was set? So can these two paragraphs be long? Yes, they probably have to be, honestly, and that's okay. I there's no law that says a paragraph has to be short, or like how long a paragraph has to be. I'm not going to give you a number of sentences or a number of words per paragraph, um, though there is a length requirement. So conclusion, just like any conclusion, you are reflecting back on the landscape of your argument. You're bringing all the threads together, and you're making one final pitch for your overall review of the film in this way, and also its representation of women during that time and in that place, and how accurate you think it is. Okay, so again, no extended plot summaries needed. You should assume that I've seen the film. There's some pretty detailed stuff here about source use and documentation. Uh, just in terms of bringing in quotes, the law of the land when it comes to bringing in outside like quotes from sources is that no more than 15% of any paper should be directly quoted from secondary sources. Um, honestly, like I don't know how you'd have more than that and have it like still be your paper at that point. So that's kind of the rule behind that. So in fact, the department's got a guideline where if it's like 30% or more, that the paper automatically fails. So because then it's like, what do we give 2/3 of a grade for 2/3 of a paper? So be choosy about what you decide to quote from the film, but also from your sources. So the majority of outside source support should be in your own words as paraphrase and summary, but that still gets cited in text, as you know from 101 and 102. So in terms of the sources, outside sources you are using from the databases, don't go get a movie review. Okay, this should be your review of the movie. Instead, again, we're looking for historical, cultural context for your analysis. So I've given an example here from the movie Precious. So this movie takes place, like it says, in a predominantly black, low-income urban setting in the 1980s. So this is like Reagan era. AIDS is just kind of starting to become known, but there's like still a lot of mystery and stigma attached to it, and the government response to it is, well, minimal at best. And that on top of everything else, there's this kind of stereotype about the welfare queen and all of these things working against the protagonist. So this setting impacts everything in her life, and she is striving to be more than just a statistic. So in order to make the argument that this movie is a realistic portrayal of that time and place for a girl like her, we need to know sort of what the statistics, what the issues were for her demographic during that time, what she's up against, and it's a lot. So again, at least one secondary source from the databases. Anything more than that needs to also come from the databases, no Google. You're going to have, just say works cited. So I love Google Docs. You can edit it and it automatically updates for you. So for the works cited page, you need to have an entry for the movie itself, and you need to have an entry for each source cited in text from the databases that you brought into the paper. So everything needs to match. Anything cited in text needs to show up as a works cited entry and vice versa. That's the first thing I check when I grade a research paper. Does all the citation match up? If not, there's a big problem. Either you didn't use it and forgot to take out the works cited entry, or you did, but you didn't tell me where, which is technically plagiarism. So make sure you use the citation guide that you've been given for the course instead of having to get a separate textbook handbook. I put it together for you to save you some money and some time. So it shows you how to do a works cited entry for a movie. It shows you how to do works cited entries for database sources. Use the guide. Okay, shows you how to do in-text citations depending on the kind of source you have. And like it says, if there's no documentation of sources, then look at a 0. It'll also go through a plagiarism checker and an AI detection thing. So not that you would do that, but that's the world we're living in now, as of a couple of months ago. So there's more information about paraphrasing, quoting. Make sure you write this in third-person point of view. So even though it is your opinion about the movie and your interpretations of the movie as historically accurate or inaccurate, you can certainly make that case as well. You need to talk about everything as though it's fact. Do not preface your opinions or your insights as I believe or I think or I noticed or I liked or I didn't like or whatever. Don't talk about yourself. Okay. Just take that part out from whatever it is that you're about to say. We're going to use MLA format. That's also, there should be an example for that in the citation guide as well, if you don't remember how to do MLA essay format. So you got to don't turn it in as a Google Doc or a SharePoint file or anything like that. I need a DOC or DOCX, or I'm okay with a PDF too. Don't put it directly in the submission text box. Yeah, you are going to be graded for grammar. So there's a grading rubric that I'm going to use for this that's different than what I've been using to grade the discussion boards. So there's 4 categories for it. There's content, there's organization, there's source use and documentation, and there's grammar and sentence clarity. So pretty much exactly what was used in English 102. That's what I'm going to be using for this. So if your grammar is not awesome, or even if it is awesome, I use Grammarly because clearly I make mistakes too. I mean, you just saw one, and guess what? Grammarly caught it for me. I'm running it in here right now. So it's free. It catches a lot of those kind of like silly things. It doesn't get everything right, so you don't have to change things just because it tells you to, but it's great at things like apostrophes, commas, little like misspellings and stuff. The things that people are, generally not great at catching as they're writing. So highly recommend it. Just give it a shot. And then the rubric should be attached with the assignment. You should be able to see it in my grades. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and, if you've made it this far, good for you, because I'm going to go ahead and offer you the chance to, if you would like, send me a draft of this before final submission, and I'd be happy to look over it and let you know if you're going in the right direction. If you send it to me on Sunday, the day the paper is due, I may not get to you in time, so I wouldn't take that particular route. But it doesn't even have to be like completely done. If you just want to send me like, okay, here's what I got so far, like, am I heading in the right direction? I will tell you. I will tell you openly and honestly. I do a lot of conferencing and draft feedback for my 101 and 102 classes because it works. It works really well, and they like it. I like it because I don't like grading bad papers, and they don't like getting bad grades. So everybody's happy, right? So I'm happy to. I can't force y'all to turn in a draft. I don't want to force y'all to turn in a draft like I do with them. But if you want to show me something, I'm here to look at it. Happy to help. Okay, so if you need anything, if you run into any problems finding sources, or again, if you want me to look at a draft, I'm here to help. All right, have a great week, and I look forward to reading y'all's essays. Take care. Bye bye.